disturbing new details in the search for a 4-year-old boy. Cops say little Mark Goodall vanished without a trace on Monday. It's from his home in Newburgh, New York, just outside of New York City. His mother's boyfriend was babysitting at the time.
If anybody has any information, if anybody's seen him, if anybody has him, just let him go. I miss him. That's my baby.
And they're an upset mom. There's the boyfriend, Corey Bird. And it gets more disturbing as cops say the boyfriend has a shady past, violent criminal background. Were warning signs ignored? We'll get into that. Back with us, Steve Rogers, Detective Lieutenant, Nutley, New Jersey Police Department. Also with us on this, Michelle Sagona, investigative journalist. You always check out more at our website, michellesagona.com, and we'll take your calls, by the way, your questions at 1-877-TEL-HLN. Michelle, any leads on where this little guy could be?
No, not at this time. I can tell you that investigators are outside. They're in the area. They are not only searching where he went missing from, where Mark went missing from, but of course they're canvassing all the way out. They're taking it mile by mile at this point, and they're taking in all leads, and they are, of course, ruling things in and ruling information out at this time. But so far, no sign of this child, and as you know, in that area, there's been freezing temperatures each night he's been gone.
All right, what's going on with the boyfriend, Corey Bird? First off, what is his story?
Well, at this point, this is what Sergeant Toomey told me just a few hours ago. He says that Mark was inside of the house. He did not go to school that day because he apparently had some stomach problems. So they kept the child home from school. Corey Bird was at home with Mark, and Mark said that, and Corey had said that Mark had wanted to go next door to his aunt's house, and investigators told me that the aunt's house is just a few steps away. So he assumed that the child just kind of walked out and walked next door like he normally does. But when Corey went downstairs, that's when he realized that the door was open, Mark is gone, nowhere to be found. So about 1:10 that afternoon, that's when he picks up the phone and calls police to say that Mark is missing.
Okay. Steve Rogers, you hear that? I mean, he's basically saying that the little guy vanished. He turns his head and turns around and he's gone. And that's pretty much what he's saying. Your thoughts on that story?
Well, that story is certainly going to be investigated, and it doesn't fly. Let's face it, Mike, it just doesn't fly. They're going to be checking with neighbors, with associates. Somewhere along the line, somebody may have some information, and they're going to check video footage of stores in the area, of apartment complexes. They're going to do everything in this search to find that little guy.
Michelle, where was the mom?
Investigators told me that she was at work at the time.
Okay, so she's out when we talk about this timeline. It's just little Mark and mom's boyfriend, and he has a criminal history, and a violent one, doesn't he, Michelle?
He does have a violent criminal history. Back in 1998, I have all of the charges here from the grand jury, but basically he was charged with child endangerment and to another one of mom's children at the time. And then...
That's his own son, or no?
Well, here's the thing. Investigators won't really get into a lot of detail with that, and the court records aren't clarifying it. But there are reports out there that say that it was his own child at the time, his own child. But having said that, this child allegedly was about a year old, and according to the charging documents, the cause was physical injury to a person less than 11 years old, and there were apparently some broken bones, even ribs. Mom says that it was an accident, but you know the suspect allegedly says that it wasn't an accident.
Was he convicted of that?
Yes, apparently he was convicted of that, but there was also, he was paroled in April after serving more than 5 years on a drug sale and also an assault conviction. Wow. So right now he's being held it's charged with child endangerment. Now, he has a $2,500 bail, so he could be bailed out at this point, but they're not going to release him because he's also being held on a parole violation. He's not going to court until January 2010.
Yeah, just to be specific on that arrest, his own son hospitalized, fractured skull, broken ribs, broken wrist, and a perforated liver. So, wow, that sounds so bad. Here's some Facebook comments on this story. This one from Sherry writing in, what is wrong with these mothers who expose their kids to known violent criminals? A lot of people thinking that. Here's another one from Edna. These mothers better start doing background checks on their boyfriends. So that's what folks are just seeing some common sense things here. Let's get a call in. Travis with us in Massachusetts. Travis, go ahead. Travis, you with us? All right. Swinging a miss on Travis. Let's go back to Steve. All right, Steve, you're, as an investigator, once you hear that and get a clear picture of the boyfriend's criminal history, first I'm sure your jaw drops, then what?
The jaw drops, and I'm thinking, guy's got nothing to lose. I believe the investigators may go down the road of let's make a deal. Tell us what happened, and we'll talk about sentencing, and we'll talk about prison, and we'll talk about that later, but it may boil down to that.
Wow.
It's a pretty tough thing to swallow.
Before we go, Michelle, was there any sign little Mark was being abused at all?
Well, that's interesting that you say that, because just a couple of months ago, the last time that little Mark was in the same vicinity as the suspect, Corey Bird, at this point, he was burned on the backside of both of his hands and recently had those bandages off.
Wow, okay. This one's disturbing. We'll keep following it, though. Michelle, Steve, as always, we appreciate it. And coming up, a mother desperately